Welcome everybody to another edition of Data Talks. This is a Data Talks show live at the headquarters of World Data Lab, together with Jim Ellis, who's a distinguished teacher, educator, and global data geek, I would call him. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Thank you very much for having me and hosting me in your office.
Jim has been a partner of World Data Lab for some time. Jim has been a family friend for a long time because he actually also educated my children. And I hope you see that the result is good. But Jim has a long track record at the American International School of Vienna here. And so with that, I wanted also to start with Jim, share a bit about what made you join the teaching profession and what are the big moments that shaped that long journey that you have been at.
I think it's a pretty good question to get started. I started in Phoenix, Arizona, in a Mexican-American community, and my parents were teachers. My aunts and uncles were teachers. And that family business of education was something that really excited me, but I didn't find my way directly there. They were all musicians, so I decided architecture, and they were all working in one part of town, so I worked in another. So even though it was kind of the family business, I was certainly trying to carve my own path, but listening to my elders talk about teaching, even as a young child, really interested me. And so I kind of found my way there.
Well, congrats for the long journey, Jim. And there's actually something I want to show the viewers. This is a recent book, and Jim just mentioned architecture, and the book is called Educators as Designers. And then you talk a little about how the analogy between architecture and teaching. Also, one question I have, Jim Ellis, tell us about your name also.
Yeah, I think Gaona is a Basque name. It is the Mexican-American name that I have. And in German, it has kind of a funny meaning. So living here in Vienna, it's not something that I use on the street very often. But yeah, it's kind of a unique Mexican family name, and I'm really proud to use it as a way of representing our family, what we do as educators.
And Jim, tell us, obviously the long journey is also a reflection of your education journey, but tell us a bit about the book, also what made you decide to write it and what are the main takeaways?
All right, so there's an intersection in my industry between the hard work that we're doing, the information that we use and gather as educators to inform what we're doing, and then how we design forward to make positive changes in education. And education, it's a messy business. For sure. And as a result, what our inputs are for our data, how we analyze that data, and how we choose to move it forward itself can be complicated and messy. Educators have a very short amount of time to be effective with the information that we're given. And as a result, I wanted to be able to lay out a plan and show the development arc that can happen when you're using data effectively in the classroom. And I do that through my training as an architect, and thinking about how the design process develops that and using design language to further that development of that critical information we use.
Fascinating. And as you can see now, Jim is not just an architect, but he's a math teacher. Jim also has spearheaded what we call the World Insights Challenge. So tell us about why you're leading this global challenge that's now expanding a lot, and what type of insights and of learning you want to transport into the classroom through that exercise.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to have the World Data Lab as the host for this. What's so important about the World Data Lab and the work that's happening within the World Data Lab is that it as a profession really is modeling the future of where math education can go. You and I both know this, and we've had a good chance of connecting our professions and our passions together. But if we imagine the more symbolic math that you and I both learned when we were children, it was equations and abstractions and numbers. And as beautiful as math is and can be, and I do believe that as a math teacher, I also understand that the world is using our math more and more and more in our real life. It's not simply to enrich our minds, but it is a piece of what we use in our real world. And as a result, the World Data Lab, the World Insights Competition, and students, that blend has created this pretty dynamic and highly accessible math competition. Generally, when we think of math competitions, I'm sure both from you and I, when we were younger, it was those that had the greatest amount of knowledge and could use it the quickest. And again, it was in that abstract sense. Here, we're inviting students to choose the math that they want to use, to ask an interesting question about the world around them, and then to apply themselves through data analysis to create visualizations that matter to them and to their community and to their world. This is, to me, one of the most interesting and relevant ways that we can ask students to be their own guides in their learning, to partner with them in co-creation, which is a big buzzword in education right now, and to get students engaged in something that we feel is really important. So as a result, I feel that this free competition that any student can do from anywhere in the world, as long as they have an internet connection, is one of the most exciting ways we can invite students into the world of maths and professions that are currently engaged in some of the more edgy development in our society. You know, it could be programming, it could be data visualizations. There's so many angles how this could work.
Well, congratulations, Jim. I think you led it with a colleague from Amsterdam, Kat Petra from the International School of Amsterdam. And give us a sense, before I go deeper a bit into the philosophy around math, give us a sense of who participated and what the tasks were at the World Insights Challenge.
Yeah, I'll say in general that we have a theme every year. We've been tracking those themes with SDGs, which has been an important thing to the World Data Lab and to educators, schools everywhere. To get here, I walked by a local public school that had the SDG goals up in their window. And it was clear that it was a vibrant part of what they're doing. So if we pick one of those goals and we ask students to ask a very specific question about themselves, their community, or something they're interested in, and then we give them the tools to look through data and develop visualizations, and then to create those visualizations and interpret them, that is creating a sort of poster project. And so we have some resources, we work directly with the teachers to do all of this, and we've had schools on many continents doing this, local schools in some cases, international schools in other cases, French-speaking schools, local Turkish schools participating in this. And this year, we were just under 100 total students participating, dozens of projects. And then, even more interesting than that, besides all of these students participating, we had different rounds of judging. So Kat and I judged the first round for completion. The second round were professionals in Europe who are economists, World Bank employees, all sorts of folks who are involved in data in their real world. And then the final round of judging came from the World Data Lab's scientists here, data scientists here, and also from you on occasion. So that means we're talking about a true community project across multiple different places that give us a chance to honor students for their thinking, creativity, and their math.
That's brilliant, Jim, because I think one aspect that we want to emphasize is that which I think many kids have, maybe sometimes parents, is the fear for math. And if I simplify, I guess there's those who love math and then those who hate math. And probably the world shouldn't be as simple as that, and it should be made simpler and easier for people to understand and access math. So tell us a bit about your own strategies and your own approach to how to bring everyone on that math journey.
That's a big one, but I really do love teaching math. I thoroughly enjoy it. The data sciences side is outstanding to me. Statistics is one of my favorite topics. But I think my enthusiasm and my desire to get my students to participate with me is the first job. I really want to make students feel like they are enjoying the subject. The second thing I want to do is to enrich them in particular skills. Most importantly, I think when you're talking about 12-year-olds that I teach, I want math to feel funny. So I want to demystify and add the humor. 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, they have a kind of a dark, morbid humor side to them, but they also have a curiosity about the world. So when I present the things we're doing with a sense of curiosity and wonderment, I tend to bring students on board with me as well. But I have to say that something that I really appreciate about you is that your curiosity and wonderment about the world is something that enriches your organization, your partners, corporate or otherwise. And I think that's something that you and I share, is this curiosity of the world. But living that every day in the classroom is a challenge sometimes, but you got to go in every day and give it a try.
Well, it was very kind of how you outlined it, Jim, but I still remember the first time we met where you also said that your biggest joy is to work with students that are not yet successful and to bring them over the hurdle, because I too often in my own life, I saw that, the teachers love the good students and then, some just struggle and have almost this trauma. And in the end, as you say, right, math, in the end, you have to be confronted, because if you want to have a good salary, understand your salary and your finances, you have to have some basic math, and some things should get more easier. And I think that's how you are now and how we have been approaching our joint projects.
Absolutely. Yeah. And to add to that a little bit, I suppose it's the applied stuff that I like the most, whether it's data visualizations and understanding your world. Sure. But I do think that my career is most meaningful when I'm bringing new understandings and new confidence to people who didn't have it before. You see that in the professional world everywhere, when organizations are trying to enrich themselves and better themselves, or they're trying to spread that message outside of their organization. I too share those same goals of trying to bring students on board who were never there before. It's a challenge, of course, but it's what makes education special.
Is there a certain data point or mathematical puzzle that you love to teach most or to inquire most?
There's a few. The first one in my career was when I began as a science teacher, actually. I have different degrees and trainings, and one of the things I was doing was teaching chemistry. And the exercise that was the most exciting to me when teaching chemistry was talking about the difference between covalent and ionic bonding. I'm sure most of us have learned that maybe in 9th grade, something like that. And when I was teaching it, I taught about the existence of one type of bond, a double bond. And that double bond made sense. I think it was one that would have had carbon and oxygen in it, I think. And then in a very sort of a subtle way, using an activity and different objects in that activity, I created a situation where there was a compound that was not explainable with a single or a double bond. It had to be a triple bond. But I didn't tell the students that it could exist or that it would exist. And so I sort of left it out there for students to discover it themselves. Mm-hmm. And when they discovered it themselves and came to me and said, "Oh, it can't be this, it can't be that, it's got to be this other thing. This thing has to exist." Mm-hmm. It was at that moment that I realized that even something as technical as covalent bonding in chemistry class could be exciting. And it could be a big aha moment that a student could get themselves. And so as I teach elements of algebra and I show the discrete pieces of them, and then I allow students to find out ways to piece those things together, it can be quite exciting. Same with the bridge of moving from linear algebra to nonlinear. The first time that they're given a curve, a parabola, and they're asked to deal with that and understand its nature, it's fun to sort of let them tell me what they're experiencing rather than for me to explain everything to them straight away. And so when I can turn those experiences around and give them a chance to explain back to me what must exist in the world rather than me doing it all the time, those can be really exciting moments for them and myself.
Brilliant, Jim. I think I want to switch now to the future of math and the future of your sector, your education, your profession. Obviously, AI is all around us. Many things are getting simpler, so maybe you can do things without really knowing what's behind them. How do you see, and a lot has been emphasized, is what's called critical thinking. Mm-hmm. How do you see the life as a teacher in the classroom changing, and what are the changes you'd like to see?
I'm really glad you asked that question. My industry is struggling with AI right now, without a doubt. Generative AI, that might be a large language model, is producing sometimes pretty interesting work, mm-hmm. and at other times the AI slop. Mm-hmm. And so that's the student-facing one. But before I get to that, and that is really going to change education, On the educator side, on my side, on the teacher side, there's something incredibly special that's about to happen. The data that's available right now and the ways in which AI is able to access that, there's an almost medical purpose that's about to emerge. We're hearing about AI detecting cancers more quickly in these things. Well, AI right now can do the same thing with learning disabilities, dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia. The people that are interfacing with that data, the students, are interacting with different software interfaces. And those interfaces are able to determine these student needs quicker than humans. And those in education understand it's been a real human problem. How many years does it take for a teacher to identify a student with a need, to get the testing, to get the funding, to get it calibrated correctly, and to get materials in the hands of a student who needs something different? However, computers can do it almost instantaneously for free without any barriers to that. And so as this starts to take place in our industry, where students can be accommodated and given the right tools more quickly, we're going to see students being able to maximize their ability to think critically. And that was the beginning of your question. Where is critical thinking going to happen? I think we're going to be able to pull it out of more students more often with greater regularity, because the tools that we will have are going to make that happen for students. So first of all, I think we're going to get even more creative thinking, critical thinking from students, and more immediately in the best way possible. That's the good news. The bad news is, how do we reimagine education around the use of AI? I think probably the biggest change that we're going to see is that your child, or anyone's child out there, is going to be doing less and less homework. And I think that teachers are going to be doing less and less direct instruction. Classrooms are going to be more of the creative space where learning is happening live in the classroom and kids are developing ideas and working hard. I imagine students going home more tired rather than full of energy and pent up energy from sitting all day. They're going to be tired from actively moving and doing and creating. And the teacher will have a reserve of energy for the first time when they go home. Because the stuff that would have gone home, students are now using AI to do it. And so we can't trust what's happening at home. And so we need to do it in school. So there's no longer an excuse for the sage on the stage, the teacher, to just teach all day long and the student to listen and then to try it out at home as homework. The place learning is going to happen finally and forever shall be the school building. And students hopefully will have a chance to explore their interests and develop further outside of the classroom. It just won't be 30 questions of math homework at home.
Wow, the sage on the stage. I've never heard that.
Oh, really?
That's a good one. But that also means that AIS, the American school you teach at, is obviously already a school that has more or less the classic American 9 to 3 p.m. kind of setup. You can't have then a school anymore from 8 to 12, like I was growing up, right? It used to be a longer. Or what happens with that, what used to be the homework time?
Yeah, what used to be the homework time, I think a school is going to need to be a little bit more creative in what they offer. STEM clubs, programming, maybe collaborative gaming on the tech side, richer sports offerings and music, these kinds of things. So I'm not going to say necessarily the traditional models shouldn't be scrapped entirely. The way in which some cultures schedule students, their day, how they eat lunch. Is there a canteen at school, or do the kids normally go home? A lot of these things can be preserved, but there's going to need to be a reimagining of the daytime of a student. I think there will need to be some reimagining at home in the evenings as well. How do you occupy your child, your precocious 10-year-old, if there isn't an essay to write at home? Perhaps families will grow closer together and find more activity together. That would be an amazing thing, but there are some questions out there still, for sure.
Wow. So, Jim, to close the bridge on the future of math in the classroom and World Data Lab, what are the types of data interactive elements you're looking for, and how do you think, if if you think again, you mentioned the future kids. I think of my grandchildren, like in 10 years or so, they would be going to your classes. What should they expect? What would be the ideal experience in 10 to 15 years?
Okay, so let's imagine this like something's coming home to you as maybe a grandfather one day, or a father, however, it might be a parent. I really imagine a kid coming home full of excitement about what they created at school. Mm-hmm. And that thing that they created at school could be a brilliant data visualization about sea level rise and islands in the Mediterranean. And maybe they thought of these elements because they visited an island with you in the Mediterranean, and they were kicking around seashells and looking at fish in the summer. And they wanted to know, will that island still be there, and for how long, and what might happen, and these sorts of things. And so perhaps your student asked this question with the teacher guide, sort of like what we do right now with the World Data Lab and the World Insights competition, but it's happening in the classroom now. And that teacher as a guide is pointing them towards some data or a style of visualization to say, well, maybe you don't want a chronological one. Maybe you want, let's look at cartography for a while, since it's going to be about an island. And this partnership is taking place, and the student finds out where to find data. And some students, maybe they make something as sophisticated as a bar graph from UNESCO data. Maybe a similar student gets their hands on their first R set of data, and they're exploring it and looking at raw data and finding a way to represent it in a more visual way than just a bar graph. But they come home to you and they're excited and say, I asked this question, and my teacher showed me where I can find this thing, and I emailed someone at the UN and they sent this other bit of information back. And then we had a symposium where we shared our ideas, and then we got a week to build this, and look at this, look at what I made. Can you see how you can click through all the different islands? I made that. This is the dream. And this is what we want right now as educators. We want time to do this stuff. And I think we're finally going to be given the license to allow kids to be leaders in their learning, and they will come home excited to share with you what they did.
Wow. Kids will build from early age.
More and more and more, yes.
Wow. Jim, thank you so much for all your thoughts. As the viewers know, the last question of all my podcast is on your favorite number, my guest's favorite number, and the story behind the number. So tell us about your favorite number, Jim.
Absolutely. I have a very specific favorite number. It's 360. Mm-hmm. It's historic, it's cultural, it's in pure math, it's meaningful. And for me, it's the circle, right? It's 360 degrees. And the ancient Babylonians either rounded that number, or they, that's as close of an estimation as they could get potentially. And they chose 360 because of the Earth's orbit around the sun. Also, the ancient Babylonians had a base 60 counting system. So it was highly divisible for the ancient Babylonians, but it's incredibly composite and highly divisible in our system as well. Ancient Babylonians, base 60, us, base 10, digits 0 through 9. And so as a result, it's a super useful number. It's also perhaps one of the most interesting numbers when you think about how its relationship to time. The ancient Babylonians' use of 60 or 60 seconds, 60 minutes. There's so much here to unpack that if I was to build an entire math course around a single number, it would be 360.
Wow, that's fascinating. And what is great, listeners, everybody has different numbers and incredibly insightful stories around them. We had it from 0 to infinity, 360. We adjusted 95 for another reason. Thank you so much, Jim, and congratulations to all the great work. And
thank you.
To the book. Here, guys, buy the book, and see you next time.